Assalamualaikum and good morning. I'm Amirul Aiman and with me my co-host Farhan Hakimi on today's episode of ASEAN Kita. Farhan, as Malaysia leads ASEAN in 2025, our discussion will focus on how Timor Leste's pending inclusion could reshape the bloc from an ASEAN perspective.
And joining us via Google Meet is geostrategist Dr. Azmi Hassan, whose expertise will help us explore the economic, political and strategic dimensions of this important issue. Good morning, Dr. Azmi. Thank you for joining AWANI.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning, Amirul and Farhan.
So let's get straight to the question. As the chair of ASEAN, Malaysia will witness, I think, potential transformation of the regional landscape. And one of the most significant developments is the inclusion of Timor Leste in the Union. So for this historical expansion, is ASEAN taking a calculated risk, Doctor, or making a bold move by welcoming Timor Leste into its fold?
Well, Farhan, I think Timor-Leste as a member of ASEAN is a natural move. Geographically, I think Timor-Leste is basically in Southeast Asia, except that we can see that Timor-Leste just gained their independence, even though 2 decades ago, but they are still a long way to go in terms of development. I think this is the kind of worry that ASEAN has. When Timor-Leste made the first intention to join ASEAN, Farhan, there was some hesitation among 1, 2, 3 members of ASEAN because the stigma of Myanmar before this, when Myanmar or Burma at that particular time admitted as an ASEAN member. Yes, I think the inclusion of Timor-Leste into ASEAN will benefit, is a win-win situation, both for Timor-Leste and also for ASEAN as an organization, Farhan.
Doctor, how does Timor-Leste fit into ASEAN's vision of a unified, forward-looking region in today's shifting geopolitical landscape, Doctor?
Well, Amirul, I think there shouldn't be any problem with that. If Burma at that time was admitted into ASEAN, but at that particular time the military junta was the government, so for Timor-Leste there is no internal political turmoil in Timor-Leste. Yes, there is change of prime minister, but not so drastically. It's still a civilian government. So in this particular case, comparing Myanmar and comparing Timor-Leste, I think there shouldn't any problem, except that there are few hesitation from the existing member whether Timor-Leste, with its lack of expertise, with its lack of infrastructure, whether Timor-Leste can fulfill its obligation as an ASEAN member. But as a whole, I think it is very appropriate, it is very timely, and for Malaysia being the chairman for the current year and being having been supporting Timor-Leste as a member right from the beginning, I think it's very appropriate that we can finalize Timor-Leste as a member this year, Amirul.
And if you look at it, Timor-Leste and Malaysia share such a unique and also growing relationship, shaped by historical ties, diplomatic cooperation and also economic collaboration. And Malaysia was one of the first actually ASEAN countries to establish diplomatic relations with Timor-Leste after its independence in 2002. And also recently, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim extended his well wishes to the people of Timor-Leste and its president, Jose Ramos Horta, for a joyful year ahead. Also acknowledging Ramos Horta's birthday coincided with the Christmas and New Year celebrations. So, looking at all these events, why does Timor-Leste matter to Malaysia, and how does our relationship go beyond just diplomacy and also especially in trade, education and also workforce collaboration?
Well, Farhan, to compare Malaysia relationship to Timor-Leste and also Indonesia relationship to Timor-Leste, I think Indonesia is much more closer in terms of social interaction because of the previous historical facts. But again, last few days, our YB Zafrul, the Minister for International Trade, was there. to witness cooperation between two companies, one from Malaysia and also one from Timor-Leste, regarding their aviation sector. Now, this demonstrates that Malaysia will support Timor-Leste in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of social interaction between the two nations. I think Malaysia has been very open with Timor-Leste, and I think we can provide a situation where there is a win-win situation. Not that Malaysia, we want to take advantage of Timor-Leste. I don't think so. That's our intention. We want to help Timor-Leste in this particular case, Farhan.
Doctor, every time ASEAN expands, there are both strategic benefits and also challenges. So what do you foresee the specific advantage does ASEAN will gain in welcoming Timor-Leste as its new coming member? Could this addition strengthen ASEAN's in global standing, or are there potential risks that we need to manage?
Yes, Amirul, I think this particular issue will put ASEAN in terms of its centrality objective. Since Timor-Leste is in our backyard, and to avoid Timor-Leste fall into the hands of, may I say, to the other superpowers that want to control Timor-Leste in terms of economy and also geopolitical, I think ASEAN has the obligation to jump in to ensure that Timor-Leste prosper without major interference or without any superpowers using Timor-Leste, because Timor-Leste is a very strategic position in this particular part of Southeast Asia. So I think ASEAN has the obligation to invite Timor-Leste, I would say, to nurture Timor-Leste so that they can reap the benefit being the organization as big as ASEAN. ASEAN is a very big organization, Amirul, in terms of economy and also in terms of geopolitical, especially geopolitical. ASEAN in Southeast Asia is very, very critical. So I guess it is very appropriate that Timor-Leste be part of ASEAN, unless ASEAN want Timor-Leste to be under the control of one of the superpowers in this particular region. Amirul.
Doctor, looking back at ASEAN's previous enlargements, such as the inclusion of Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam and Cambodia, what lessons can be drawn from here? How might this past experience guide ASEAN's approach in integrating Timor-Leste smoothly and effectively, Doctor?
Well, to be honest, Amirul, we failed on Myanmar. Cambodia being the last being admitted into ASEAN, I think there shouldn't be any problem. There is no problem with Cambodia in this case, but there is problem with Myanmar in this particular case. The 5-point consensus that we put forward when Jakarta was the ASEAN chairman did not follow through, did not go through. I think that's the best we can learn from the Myanmar episode. I think that's another reason that a few members of ASEAN are very hesitant to admit Timor-Leste in this case, because of the stigma, negative stigma from Myanmar being admitted into ASEAN. But I guess ASEAN has no choice regarding the Timor-Leste. ASEAN need to admit Timor-Leste. As I said before, if Timor-Leste is out of ASEAN, but geographically they are within Southeast Asia, then other powers, other major powers will influence Timor-Leste. We don't want to do that. But again, Amirul, yes, on Myanmar case, on the humanitarian side, on the democracy side, I think ASEAN failed. I think in this case, we don't want to replicate the failure of Myanmar towards Timor-Leste. I think that's the more important thing, that Timor-Leste being admitted into ASEAN as soon as possible, Amirul.
And also, Doctor, recently Westar Aviation Group has partnered with Santos, an Australian energy company, to provide helicopter transportation services for Santos offshore operations in Timor-Leste. So this collaboration, valued at $40 million, aims to enhance the efficiency and also safety of offshore energy operations in the region. So given this, how do you see the Westar and Santos partnership contributing to the development of Timor-Leste's energy sector, and also how this strengthens our bilateral relationship with Timor-Leste?
Yeah, one thing for sure is that Timor-Leste depending too much on the energy sector. on the oil revenue, which is around 80 to 90%. I think the cooperation between West Star and Sun is a demonstration, is a manifestation that how we can work together so that it creates a win-win situation. What I want to see is that beyond West Star, beyond aviation in the oil and gas sector of economy in Timor-Leste, I think Petronas also maybe together with Pertamina, and I think can work together in Timor-Leste. Whatever we are doing in Timor-Leste, we should not forget Indonesia in this particular case. It is a very sensitive issue, but I guess the West Star Santos cooperation clearly demonstrate that how we can propagate our bilateral relation with Timor-Leste, and I'm sure not many Malaysians know much about Timor-Leste, their social cohesion and other matters. So I guess this is a starting point that a win-win situation between Malaysia and Timor-Leste can be developed. Farhan.
Doctor, maybe one more last question before we go on to our break. You mentioned just now that some ASEAN countries might express hesitation about Timor-Leste's accession due to concerns over maybe governance or institutional capacity. As the ASEAN chair in 2025, how can Malaysia, how can we play a role in addressing these concerns and helping to build consensus among all members, Doctor?
Yes, Amirul, there was hesitation from few members of ASEAN, but again, I think that was before this. I think the hesitation has been, I would say, realized, something that are not really critical. And currently, Amirul, there was a consensus that within the 10 ASEAN nation, Timor-Leste can be admitted. Right now, they are on an observer status. So regarding consensus on the 10 ASEAN members regarding Timor-Leste, there is no issue right now. I think all the members, including the few nations that are very hesitant, agreed that Timor-Leste should be part of ASEAN as soon as possible, Amirul.
Yeah, so we will now take a short break, and when we return, we will continue our conversation with Dr. Azmi Hassan and delve even deeper into the implications of Timor-Leste's bid and also the role Malaysia is playing in steering ASEAN's future. Hi, welcome back to ASEAN Kita. We are now resuming our discussion on Timor-Leste's bid for full ASEAN membership, and we will explore further how this new chapter could influence ASEAN's strategic and economic landscape and examine Malaysia's critical role as ASEAN chair in 2025. And joining us online is Dr. Azmi Hassan, a geostrategist whose expertise will help us explore the economic, political, and also strategic dimensions of these important issues. So, Doctor, can ASEAN's economic machinery integrate Timor-Leste's unique market without disrupting the existing balance of trade and also investment?
Farhan, the one thing that's very interesting in Timor-Leste economy that they are using US dollar. I think that is very, very interesting. And I think another interesting part is that 90% of the Timor-Leste revenue derive from oil and gas sector. So by Timor-Leste joining ASEAN, I think it provides a huge market for Timor-Leste. Currently stands at more than 600 million. But not only that, because ASEAN has the FTA with other bigger economies such as China or South Korea or Japan. So I guess in terms of integration, I guess it is Timor-Leste need more ASEAN compared to the other way around. But I think this is a win-win situation. We want to see any nation within the South parameter to be prosper. In this case, I think that one of the main apparatus of ASEAN, it is the economy, and Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has said it before during Kuala Lumpur as the chairman. Economic matters will be the priority for the chairman. So I guess with the inclusion of Timor-Leste, I think the more is the more merrier, I guess, Farhan, in this case.
Doctor, a political and institutional consideration is important when a member trying to get into ASEAN's bloc, and democracy, rule of law, and also the institutional capacity are key factors in ASEAN's assessments of prospective members. How do current ASEAN nations, particularly Malaysia, evaluate Timor-Leste progress in this area? What are areas that are still need to be improved?
Yes, truly enough, Amirul, I think the democracy part is very, very important. The governance is very, very important. But to be honest, when Myanmar was under the junta administration, Malaysia was one of the main supporters to include Burma at that time into ASEAN. Compare Burma and also Timor-Leste in terms of governance, in terms of democracy, I think there is a huge difference in this. So in my mind, I don't see there's going to be a real problem into integrating Timor-Leste into ASEAN in terms of its democratic values. We should know that besides democratic value, we have another two pillars, which is the economy and also the social pillars of ASEAN. If we integrated these particular three pillars, I think into Timor-Leste, how they can adopt and adapt, I think there shouldn't be any problem. But again, we need to stress that in terms of Myanmar, ASEAN did fail a little bit. So compared to Timor-Leste, I think we should not have any problem. We should not have any worrying factor in this particular case, Amirul.
And also, Doctor, are Timor-Leste's ongoing political reforms robust enough to meet ASEAN's high standards, or does its journey still require significant course corrections?
Well, Farhan, I think a very sensitive question there. Yes, I think the turmoil of internal politics in Timor-Leste is, I would say, a very subdued compared to other ASEAN nations. For example, we not say which other nation. So in this case, I guess there shouldn't be any big issue, big problem regarding internal political turmoil. If I can say turmoil, it's not a turmoil basically, because 20 years of independence before this under Indonesia, it's not easy. It's not very easy. But as I see it, Timor-Leste will be a good model for ASEAN to show that they take care of their own members. Currently, Timor-Leste is hanging around, not being a member of ASEAN. So ASEAN try to pick up this particular issue so that ASEAN centrality, that's what Datuk Seri Anwar want ASEAN to be, can be more heightened and can be more strengthened, Farhan.
Doctor, we would like to bring this conversation to security, defense, and also geopolitical implications of Timor-Leste's accession to ASEAN. Given the complex geopolitical situation or landscape in Southeast Asia, how might Timor-Leste's accession influence ASEAN's collective defense posture? Could its inclusion after ASEAN's strategic balance, or especially in relation to major external powers?
Well, Amirul, if you look Timor-Leste as it is right now, whether they are more towards United States or towards another superpower, which is China, is basically in the middle. We have no idea the inclination of Timor-Leste in this particular case. So talking about defense posture, Timor-Leste position, geographically positioned, right, we're very nearby to Australia and also part of Southeast Asia. I think the geographic position, location is very, very critical for ASEAN. So besides economy, besides social cohesion, I think the defense posture within ASEAN, by including Timor-Leste as part of their, I would say, members, it is very critical for ASEAN, because ASEAN, as Datuk Seri Anwar said during Malaysia tenure, want to be more in terms of centrality, be more involved in international issues. So being part of ASEAN, I think Timor-Leste will, I would say, strengthen defense posture of ASEAN itself, Amirul.
And let's look into external pressures and also global geopolitics. How are major global players like China and also the US likely to interpret Timor-Leste's bid? And what does this mean for ASEAN's strategic positioning?
Yeah, well, Farhan, compared to 10, 15 years ago when Myanmar, ASEAN wanted to admit Myanmar as a member, in terms of Timor-Leste, there is nothing, not much noise. During Myanmar, there was a lot of noise, the hesitation from the EU, from the United States, and also from other Western nations, whether this is the correct move. But in case of Timor-Leste, Farhan, I did not hear this kind of noise. So I would say that it is a very positive for ASEAN, a very positive for Indo-Pacific, for example. So I guess the inclusion of Timor-Leste, I think, will be a very, I would say, a mundane issue, not as sensitive when Myanmar was admitted into ASEAN 2 decades ago, if I'm not mistaken, Farhan.
Doctor, can Timor-Leste's inclusion be leveraged as a counterbalance in the escalating US-China rivalry, or is it too risky for a proposition, Doctor?
Well, to say that, not much, I guess. But true enough, China has been creeping into Timor-Leste in terms of infrastructure development, not so much about the BRI, the Belt Road Initiative. But again, I think the message that ASEAN is trying to portray, to put forward, is that before Timor-Leste is being used as a pawn in this part of particular world between the two superpowers, we need to hold the grip on Timor-Leste first. So I think that's the main reason, one of the main reasons why Timor-Leste is important to be part of ASEAN in this case, so that if anything, the two superpowers want to encroach the power, the geopolitics of ASEAN, I think ASEAN has a voice, at least has a big voice in Timor-Leste, what is their foreign policy, Amirul.
And Doctor, let's unravel future outlook, legacy, and also lessons for ASEAN pertaining to this particular matter. So, what long-term legacy might Timor-Leste's accession create for ASEAN's future expansion efforts and also overall regional stability?
Yeah, I think Timor-Leste currently, as we understand right now, 2 decades ago, being independent from Indonesia, I think all hands must be on deck to help Timor-Leste. As one of ASEAN believe, the charter is that we prosper our neighbor, and Timor-Leste is our neighbor. Not only Indonesian neighbor, Philippines or Brunei, Malaysia, but ASEAN neighbor as a whole. So we want to see Timor-Leste prosper in this case. And there is a huge potential in Timor-Leste, especially on the oil and gas sector. So I guess the legacy is that ASEAN is always there for its neighbors, even though currently not part of ASEAN, but ASEAN will put all hands on deck to help Timor-Leste, Farhan.
Doctor, looking ahead to the next few decades, perhaps ASEAN will continue to evolve, and under Malaysia's leadership in 2025, how can ASEAN ensure its expansion efforts not only strengthen regional unity, but also drive economic dynamism and also political stability in the future, Doctor?
Yeah, true enough, Amirul. By 2020, ASEAN want to be the fourth economic powers of an organization. So we welcome, ASEAN welcome Timor-Leste as a member, even though Timor-Leste in terms of GDP output is only 50% of Laos. So I guess in this particular case, ASEAN, under chairman of Malaysia, want to be more involved on international issues. And the 11 member will help create a stronger ASEAN in this particular case. So I think under the chairmanship of Malaysia, Amirul, I think I'm very excited, not only as a Malaysian, but also as a ASEAN citizen in this case, that we want to be on par with other organizations, European nation, EU, for example. I think that's the most appropriate if you want to compare ASEAN and other organizations. So I guess it is good that I think consensus has been reached to accept Timor-Leste as a full member, Amirul.
Yeah, so that brings us to the end of today's edition of ASEAN Kita. A sincere thank you to Dr. Azmi Hassan for sharing his insights as we unpack the challenges and also prospects of Timor-Leste's accession from ASEAN's perspective, Amirul.
As Malaysia leads ASEAN into this new era, we remain committed to keeping you informed on the developments that matter. That's all from us on today's episode of ASEAN Kita. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day ahead.